Hi there guys, I hope you are having a good day. Grab yourself a cup of tea and let's talk some boxing. Now, Andy Ruiz Jr. and his next possible fight. He has spoken about the likes of Dillian Whyte and Luis Ortiz. Now, first of all, I'm going to say that I would rather see him face Dillian Whyte. I think that that's a great fight, but at the moment it probably would be more likely to be Luis Ortiz, although Eddie Hearn said that he's looking to take Dillian Whyte to America, and Dillian Whyte said the same. So maybe they could set up a Ruiz-Whyte fight. That would be incredible. But at the moment, I would edge slightly towards Luis Ortiz, which is still a great fight. Now, the thing is about Andy Ruiz Jr. is he had that fight against Anthony Joshua, and that did raise his bar completely and his profile as well. So it was always going to be difficult for him to get fights against the top guys because, I mean, he's not really going to be a fighter that someone wants to get in the ring with because he's tough, he's awkward, he comes to fight as well. Luis Ortiz wouldn't be someone I would imagine who would pick Andy Ruiz Jr. to face because Luis Ortiz is in a situation where he can usually get a world title fight or a big fight based off of fighting lower level oppositions because for whatever reason he is a big name in the heavyweight division. So I mean, when Anthony Joshua doesn't have an opponent, Luis Ortiz is a name that gets mentioned. When Wilder doesn't, when Fury doesn't, and so on. So, if he fights Andy Ruiz Jr., then that kind of does go away, especially if he were to lose. In fact, if he were to lose, then he is going to. If he were to win, then that's great. But given Andy Ruiz Jr.'s performance against Anthony Joshua in the first fight, I would say that someone in the position of Luis Ortiz would be less inclined to fight him, but based off of the performance against Arreola, things could be different, because he does have that profile, didn't look all that good against Arreola, got dropped as well. Luis Ortiz could be looking at that thinking, hang on a minute, I could fight him, I could beat him, and based off of his profile, my stock is going to go through the roof. Then he's definitely going to get a big fight next, against one of the top 3, top 4 fighters in the heavyweight division. So the risk versus reward is balancing out when fighting someone like Andy Ruiz Jr., especially for Luis Ortiz. Now it's different for Dillian Whyte because he wanted to fight him way before he got in the ring with Arreola. He was trying to make this fight last year. So regardless of what might have happened against Andy Ruiz Jr. and Chris Arreola, Dillian Whyte was still keen to take the fight no matter what. And I wouldn't say that Luis Ortiz would have been, but considering what happened in the Arreola fight, he might now be more inclined to face Andy Ruiz Jr. It is a big fight anyway. I'd say Andy Ruiz is at least top 6 heavyweight in the world, so it is a big opportunity for Luis Ortiz because Ruiz does have that profile as well, off of beating Anthony Joshua, 2 fights with him as well, having that rematch in December of 2019. So there is an opportunity there for whoever steps in the ring with Ruiz. Dillian Whyte has also built his own following, mainly in the UK as well, and he's based it off of fighting top contenders back to back, and I don't think that that's going to stop anytime soon. But with Andy Ruiz Jr., that Arreola fight wasn't really considered a good performance. In fact, it was an extremely close fight. Some were calling for Arreola to get the nod on the scorecards. So while that wasn't the best performance, and perhaps what Andy Ruiz Jr. might have hoped after his comeback after 2 fights against Anthony Joshua, it might have been a good thing. He got some rounds in, and also it was a fight where he didn't look the best, he looked beatable. So other fighters now are going to be wanting to fight him, because as I said, the profile, the risk versus reward. So I don't know, maybe some fighters around there will think that he's there for the taking, specifically Luis Ortiz. I think that Dillian Whyte would take the fight regardless. But I think that Luis Ortiz is in a situation where he does have to pick his fights carefully because his next fight could always be his last one. And he does risk being in that position of being mentioned when, say, AJ, Dillian Whyte, Andy Ruiz or Tyson Fury needs an opponent, because he does get mentioned. He was mentioned for Anthony Joshua if the Usyk fight did not come through. There was talk of him going back to America, and Luis Ortiz's name was one that was on the cards. Now, in spite of all of that, I just want to see Dillian Whyte versus Andy Ruiz Jr. Ruiz-Ortiz is a brilliant fight, that's one I definitely do want to see, but Whyte versus Ruiz is going to be incredible, and if that is something that can happen, then I really do hope it does. Dillian Whyte is in a situation though where he could be called as WBC mandatory, or he should be called as WBC mandatory next year. Now, is he going to want to risk that position? Well, I would say yeah, again, because he's done it before, time and time again. So I would say definitely, if the deal is right, if the fight is right, then Dillian Whyte will definitely fight Ruiz next. And that could happen in America because, as I said, that is something that Eddie Hearn is talking about. If not, then there could be another fight in the UK for Dillian Whyte. Why not bring Andy Ruiz to the UK? I don't see any problem with that. Maybe we could even see Dillian Whyte versus Luis Ortiz. That is also a fight that could have happened before, something of which I think we would all be interested in. Those three could put together something great. I mean, it could be Dillian Whyte Ruiz, could be Dillian Whyte versus Ortiz, could be Andy Ruiz versus Ortiz. You don't know which ones are going to fight one another, but I hope that we get to see more of that. More of these top guys facing one another. Yes, they are risking their position. Yes, they are risking a potential world title shot, because it seems like anyone within the top 10 could have a shot at someone like Anthony Joshua. But still, they have to put that on the line if they want to progress. I mean, I'm seeing Filip Hrgović looking for someone to face him in an IBF eliminator, and he's gone down the rankings. Fighters have turned down that fight. Michael Hunter turned it down. The opportunity to have an eliminator to then become mandatory to Anthony Joshua. So essentially, they are one fight away from getting a world title opportunity. And that is something that is not a good offer for them. That's not something they warrant to be a big enough reward for the risk of fighting Hrgović, which is not great, because I think that they do need to take those kind of risks if they want to put themselves in the position to face for a world title. And I don't see Anthony Joshua or Tyson Fury, maybe Tyson Fury, but I don't see them wanting to fight someone who hasn't taken those risks. They're going to want to fight the risk taker, the biggest fight they can take, especially in the case of Anthony Joshua, because he has proven it time and time again. So he is going to be inclined to go for someone like Filip Hrgović, like Dillian Whyte, if a fight falls through with, say, Alexander Usyk, or he doesn't have to face a mandatory and is warranted a voluntary defense. Because we know that he will always go for the biggest fight possible. Going back to the situation with Andy Ruiz and his next fight, if we could choose, who would it be? Guys, leave your thoughts in the comments down below. Who would you choose? Would it be Dillian Whyte or Luis Ortiz for Ruiz next, in America or in the UK? Make sure you leave your thoughts in the comments below. Also leave a like and grab that subscribe button. Thanks guys.